Hello there, people of the internet. So I'm out here with a table full of guns, and I figured I'd go ahead and make myself my own little opinionated list on firearms that are probably not the best idea for new shooters. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, none of this stuff is free. If you want to help support my work, Utreon and Patreon are in the description below. That being said, this right here is completely an opinionated video. Of course, I'm sure there's going to be people down in the comments that are griping about how they disagree with my opinion. I feel like I'm going to make some good points with what I'll be talking about here, but if you disagree with me, that's fine. If, you know, any of these were your first firearm, and I'm sure there's some here that were first firearms, then by all means, if you're a gun guy now, then this is not a definitive carved into stone kind of ordeal. However, there are definitely better options. So let's go ahead and get into this. I guess I don't really need these yet, because our first contender is probably going to be one of the most obvious ones. Now, this right here is not a specific firearm. This is more like a general genre. This is a Vetterli chambered in 41 Swiss, which is a rimfire cartridge that does not exist anymore. If you are a new shooter or looking to become a new gun owner, getting yourself something that is an ammunition type that you literally cannot find nowadays probably is not a good idea. Now, this right here is a rifle that has become very popular due to pop culture and video games. This right here has been popping up. There are some more alternatives out there that would probably be more common to come across than something like this right here, like say a 6.5 Jap or 7.35 Carcano. I have both of those, and I have fired both on this channel. However, ammunition for those are pretty difficult to find, and this right here is one I have not shot yet on the channel, literally because I have no ammunition. You can do centerfire conversions with this, however it takes significant modifications to the rifle to be able to pull that off, and then you have to get specialty made ammunition to be able to throw through this thing. Just not necessarily a setup that a new shooter, an inexperienced shooter, would want to deal with. Excellent rifle. I really like this thing. The cartridges it fires have roughly the same power as a 44 Magnum, ballistically speaking, kind of around that ballpark. Now, let's go ahead and move on from there. Well, this is no particular order. I want to go ahead and point that out now. But there is probably like the one that new shooters should probably stay away from the most. Ones that that you can't shoot. If I can't shoot it, and I shoot a lot of oddball stuff, then you guys can't shoot it either. This one is still in its rimfire configuration, by the way. That's why I haven't gone out and gotten centerfire shells, loaded some ammunition, and sent some rounds downrange with it. Alright, up next is kind of going to be a running theme for the next couple of firearms. I recommend a new shooter stays away from large gauge shotguns. Now, if you are a new, inexperienced shooter, then there's something that you gotta deal with firearms known as recoil. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you've at least heard of it. Well, whenever you get like 10 gauge and even like high power 12 gauge shotgun shells like Magnum loads and whatnot, you have a significantly stout recoil. I would recommend, if you decide to go with a shotgun, and shotguns are a fantastic option, they're very universal. Between birdshot, buckshot, and slugs, you can take care of basically anything that you would need to take care of here in the world. Great for defense. You get yourself a manually operated one, then this right here can cycle basically any kind of ammunition, or you can get yourself a semi-automatic shotgun. And with one of those, you got to figure out what kind of ammunition that particular shotgun likes, but you can put down a lot of lead downrange very quickly. Something like this, birdshot, I mean, that can be useful for a whole host of things, mainly for taking out birds and whatnot, or other various small game. Buckshot, great for defense, but also great for hunting. Slugs, if you get yourself a rifled slug or something like that, then you can make shots with your shotgun out to some pretty significant distances. And if you get yourself a shotgun that is, well, one that has a barrel that is of a half decent length and potentially even a choke on it, then you can get some pretty decent accuracy out of your loads. Shotguns of all varieties are nice and powerful. Now, I recommend staying away, like I said, from 10 gauge shotguns if you are new and inexperienced. You don't want to not like shooting because of recoil. Now, if you want to become a recoil junkie, by all means, go ahead and do what you want. This right here is more or less a caveat for people that are a little bit more recoil sensitive, or maybe people that are smaller in stature. I recommend staying away from 10 gauge shotguns. I also recommend staying away from 12 gauge shotguns unless you're going to rock like lightweight loads until you get more used to handling firearms. I would personally go with a 20 gauge or a 410 gauge just because those are a lot less harsh shotguns to use. Now, they can still be as universal as the 12 gauge, or, you know, as powerful as the 10 gauge. The 12 gauge can definitely send a lot of lead downrange very quickly. And 12 gauge magnum loads are no joke. Now, this 12 gauge here, I actually just have a couple of very cheap target loads in. This is just bird shot. Now, we're sitting out here at about, oh, I don't know, 80 yards or so. I'm just going to aim for that general area because our target down there is actually a car. And I'm going to pepper the entire car with some target loads that will probably do nothing at this range. Well, I saw something move down there, so I know that we at least hit our target. Of course, hell, it's kind of hard not to hit your target with bird shot from a shotgun at 80 yards. Somewhere down there, there's going to be a pellet that hits something. If you do decide to go with a 12 gauge, which is by far the most popular shotgun here in the United States, then like I said, you want to get yourself some lightweight loads until you get more used to the recoil. These do not recoil like basically at all. They're a very good learning platform. I recommend going with a 20 gauge or a 410 gauge if you want to do things like fire buckshot or fire a little bit more stout recoil items. If you do decide to go with a 12 gauge, then like I said, just know what you're getting into. Next one is one that I feel like is going to cause a little bit of controversy because this was a lot of people's first firearms. And like I said, if you're into recoil, by all means, you do whatever it is that you want to do. Now, I don't recommend a person's first firearm be a full power rifle. This is a Mosin Nagant, and it was a first firearm for a lot of people out there. So like I said, this one right here might cause a little bit of controversy. I'm not saying that this would not be a good first firearm. I'm just saying it wouldn't be the best option for picking a first firearm. These were cheap, like very, very cheap back in the day. I mean, they still are kind of cheap for the quality of rifle that it is that you're getting and the amount of money that you're paying for it. But a full power rifle cartridge has quite significant recoil behind it. And people that deal with significant recoil oftentimes develop a flinch, especially if they're a new shooter and all they know is significant recoil. They deal with significant anticipation of what is about to happen whenever they pull that trigger. Not only that, but a full power rifle round, people greatly underestimate just how powerful these rounds are. And I have seen it several times where people who are ignorant to the true power of these cartridges shoot at something thinking that it is going to stop the projectile, and the projectile goes right through it like it's not even there and proceeds to go on and damage something that is beyond their target. And like, true story, there was a guy that was shooting water jugs with a full power rifle. I believe it might have even been a Mosin Nagant. And this was, hell, many years ago at this point, but he was shooting water jugs and he was just expecting the water jugs to stop the bullet. Well, lo and behold, they did not stop the bullet, and he wasn't paying attention, and he managed to hit his truck with one of the rounds that had gone through one of the water jugs. So that's just something that is, if you are unfamiliar with firearms and a little bit more ignorant towards things like that, then having a full power rifle probably would not be the best thing for you to learn on. Now, like I said, this right here was a lot of people's first rifles, so if this was your first rifle, it definitely does make a better first rifle than some of the other ones like I talked about, like for example this 41 Swiss Vetterli over here. That would not make a good first rifle. Something like this, not the best option, but definitely not the worst. So speaking of, I actually have a couple of rounds here. I'm going to see if I can nail my steel down there. This right here is cheap tool ammo, and it's got about a 6-inch spread at this distance, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to hit my target, but damn it, I'm going to try. I think I actually nailed it. Alright, there's that round. There we go. That was a confirmed hit. I saw the target flop around. I don't know if that one was a miss or not. Alright. But lots of recoil behind these, and if you are recoil sensitive and trying to learn, probably not the best option. Alright, up next, I actually don't have one of these, so this is probably going to be the choice that you would want to pick if you decide to go with this platform. What I would choose not to give to a brand new shooter as a first firearm is some kind of AR pistol. Now, the AR platform, I mean, it's a very, very good platform, don't get me wrong. But 223 5.56 has a lot of concussive blast. Not a lot of recoil, but the concussive blast, man, especially out of a short barrel, definitely makes up for it. True story, I had a younger gentleman who had never shot a firearm before. I did not do this myself. I was just at a public range, and this just so happened to happen. But younger gentleman never shot a firearm before. They thought that giving him an AR pistol would be the best option for him to go ahead and learn on because it's, you know, light recoil and whatnot. Well, this younger gentleman was not prepared at all for the concussive blast that came out of that thing. He had hearing protection on, you know, thank goodness. But whenever he had fired that thing, they only loaded one round. Whenever you're dealing with new shooters who are just starting to learn, you know, load one round in case something goes terribly wrong. This way, if something happens, you don't have to worry about a second round going off and potentially hitting somebody. So they loaded one round into this AR pistol, and he pulled the trigger, and whenever that concussive blast went off, I think this was like a 7.5 inch barrel, or it was a ridiculously short barrel. Whenever that blast went off, he like this was a young guy, probably about 12 years old. And whenever that blast went off, he like threw the gun. He just the look on his face. He went, ah! He threw the gun up, and he acted like he had been injured by something, and he just was not ready for that concussive blast. But he threw the gun up, and it tumbled around, and it landed on the ground. And I'm glad that they only loaded one round into that thing. But this was somebody who was just not ready for it, and this is something that could happen. Now, if you do decide to use an AR platform to teach someone on, excellent platform, light recoiling ammunition is, you know, very readily available. I recommend going with something that is, you know, a little bit longer. With these longer barrels on these 223s, the concussive blast is significantly less, especially if you get yourself a decent break on this thing. That's, well, 223 doesn't have a lot of recoil behind it. So if you get yourself a break that directs gas one way or the other, then you might be able to get around having some kind of directional gas concussive force. Wow, I messed up that sentence really bad just then, but hopefully you guys understand what I was trying to get at. Full-length rifle for 223. This would definitely be a preference of mine. Let me see if I can nail that target with this. Alright, kind of some fast shooting there, but I did in fact nail the target. Yeah, this right here would be a good thing to learn on. Alright, up next, I would say an AK platform would probably not be a good thing for a brand new shooter to learn on. One, if you're dealing with a brand new shooter, odds are he's going to get a budget tier AK, and there's a lot of quality control issues that come with budget tier AKs. They don't know to look at the rivets and look at all of the little odds and ends stuff, like the, you know, fitment of the magazine inside of the magazine well, and how the rear sight is attached, and whether or not the front sight is canted, and, you know, check to make sure that the stock is on tightly and the, you know, grip right here. Just make, like, all the odds and ends stuff that people who are experienced with firearms know to look for on an AK. They're not going to pick up an AK and look at the rivets and make sure that they're all seated properly, and this particular Romanian one actually looks really, really decent. But, they're not going to know to do these things because they are a new, inexperienced shooter. And if they're getting like a very budget tier AK, then quality control is not going to be that great. And odds are they're going to pick up something that is going to start to have issues, you know, down the line. Now, it might serve them for the purposes that they're looking to get. I mean, if they're going to get it and use it once or twice and then have it sit in their closet, then by all means, go ahead and do that if that's what you feel like doing. But if they're going to be like me and get it and shoot the ever-living hell out of it, then maybe getting something that is a better quality would be the better way to go, so you don't have your AK falling apart. My first AK was an inner ordnance AK, and I've made several videos on that thing, and I've literally had to like completely rebuild the AK at this point in order to get it functional, because those inner ordnance AKs, they just wear out way too fast, because the metallurgy inside of the AK, it just is not to the spec that it should be. And as a result, pins wear out. I mean, my bolts, my bolt carrier group, and my hammer and fire control group, those all like mushroomed out, because just from the firearm cycling, it literally mushroomed out the metal, because the metal was just so soft. And the front trunnion has had issues because it's just a cast front trunnion. Like, new shooters wouldn't know to think about and look at these things, so they would just be like, oh, $600 AK, I'll take that, or $550 off the used market, I'll take that. And they pull the trigger, headspace is off, and the gun blows up in their face, and they're like, oh god, I do not want to deal with guns anymore at all. And that's not what we want. Now, if you are bound and determined to get yourself some kind of 7.62x39 platform, I recommend going with an SKS. Just make sure that all the Cosmoling is cleaned out of that thing so you don't get issues with slam fires. But I recommend the SKS because those are pretty much bulletproof, and they're military tech. And no matter what country it is that you come or that you get one from, they're all basically going to be, I don't want to say identical because there's minute differences, but once you learn one SKS, you'll basically know them all. If you insist on an AK variant for your 7.62x39 or even 5.45 or 5.56 AK, if that's what you want to go with, make sure you're getting it from a manufacturer that knows what they're doing and that won't cut corners like a lot of other manufacturers do. Like, well, I don't want to talk about the manufacturers that I would recommend, because YouTube's kind of funny about that. So I'm going to go ahead and, instead of doing that, put a couple of rounds down range. This is a Romanian RH-10. And this particular AK has actually served me pretty decently, and it is covered in dust. I have not used this thing for a little while. Alright, I'm remembering that this thing hits slightly high, so I'm going to have to aim at the bottom of my target. There we go, that nailed it. I'm watching the shells absolutely fly out of this thing. And they're probably going into Jupiter's orbit at this point. Alright, well, I guess I only had 5 rounds in that thing. So like I said, this is definitely just an opinionated video, and there are some caveats where some of these have been people's first time guns. I feel like the 12-gauge shotgun, just because of how numerous it is, that was a lot of people's first guns. But I'm saying it would not be the best option to learn on. And our Mosin Nagant over here, just that general genre of military surplus rifle, that was a lot of people's first guns because they were so damn cheap. But if you are recoil sensitive or someone small in stature, and you don't necessarily have a lot of firearms training, then maybe you're going to develop some kind of flinch, or maybe you're going to have some kind of issue that could develop from having a full power rifle round. And you don't want to end up getting yourself in trouble because you underestimate just how powerful those cartridges are. So hey folks, appreciate your time. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, description below. Link to all sorts of stuff. Go check that out. Let me know what you guys' thoughts are in the comments below. I'm sure you're going to do that anyway, and I'm sure you already have before even reaching this part of the video. If you made it to this part of the video, congratulations. I wonder how many people actually make it to this part of the video. Let me know if you made it this far down in the comments below. But, I mean, what was your first firearm? My first firearm, well, okay, alright, I'm going to go ahead and put my foot in my mouth on this one. My first firearm, that was actually a firearm, was a Mosin Nagant. One of the ones that I'm saying is probably not a good idea for a new shooter. And I can vouch for this. Back whenever I had first gotten my Mosin, well, just like I was saying, I actually did develop a flinch. I really wasn't thinking about this, but back whenever I first got my Mosin, I legitimately did develop a flinch. And I noticed this whenever I was doing very early video production, because I was not very accurate back in the day, but since I was doing video production, I was able to like slow things down and see what I was doing. And, well, maybe I'll be able to find something. But I noticed in video production, before the gun even fires, I'd go like this, and I'd move it around just slightly, and that's more than enough to be able to throw your shot off downrange, especially if you're at, you know, a significant range, more than just a point blank range. So that did develop from me having a full power rifle, and actually it was me using the 223, not necessarily this rifle right here, but the 223 with its light recoiling round, that I was able to like develop, or able to get around that flinch. I was able to see it through the video production, and I just kind of slowed that down, and I was able to get around it with a 223 because this right here has less recoil behind it. So I was just able to, you know, focus on holding tight, not moving, and pulling that trigger. And there's just how I was able to get around that, using a lot of recoil around. Alright, well, hopefully you guys had fun with this video. I will see you guys on the next episode. I'm probably going to go grab myself some more stuff and make some more videos. And I'll see, like I said, I'll see y'all later.
Been a little while since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garen. It's a shame that bolt-action shotguns aren't more mainstream.